Back. Today we'll be kind of going over and adding on to what we did last time. So last time we basically used request as a way of getting the HTML for the website because we use request and then we use .text again as the way of accessing the HTML of the website. Today we'll be using Beautiful Soup, the package, and kind of seeing what that does for us in terms of getting of accessing the HTML of the website and working with it. And so yeah. So first, let's make a soup object by using the Beautiful Soup function. I'll kind of go over what the soup object actually is later. But let's write this code. So yeah, like that. And basically what the soup object is it's kind of like it converts the HTML into a more readable format for the computer. And it's very compatible with functions within the Beautiful Soup library, right? So once you have the soup object, you can use functions within the Beautiful Soup library to work with soup. And you'll see that later as we continue. So again, let's kind of go over what our goal was. So our goal was to basically get each statistic for each player and then have a list of kind of all the players with all their statistics, right? And if you look at the HTML, what you notice is that what you want to notice is that there's a table row element, right? Which basically is what separates each player. So notice how TR row 0 is Joel Embiid, right? TR row 1 is Doncic. And then TR row 3 is Giannis, right? So it's the table rows separate the players, and the TD separates the stats for each player. And what you want to notice here is notice how its TD is indented within the table row. That means that TD is like kind of like within the table row, right? So what this means when we're scraping it is that we want to scrape the table row first, then access the table data. Or I don't know what TD is, but then access the TD, or each individual data. And notice how the actual stuff that is kind of contained within the TDs is the statistics here you want, right? Like look at how here we have 33.6, right? This number is between the two TD elements, the TD tags. And that gives you the points for Joel Embiid, right? Or minutes per game. I don't know. But yeah, basically all these numbers, the numbers you want are between the TD tags. So again, we have to find the table row elements and then find the TD elements within each table row. So let's do that. So let's do all players equals soup dot find all TR. So this gives you kind of finds all of the occurrences of the TR tag within the HTML, and makes each occurrence an element within an array. I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So if you print all players, you guys can see here that each it looks kind of messy, but it'll be tidier later on. It's basically an array because there's a square bracket, and each table row or row is separated by a comma, which means that each row is an element within the array. Okay, and then let me just add some notes. You guys can kind of just watch me, I guess. How we want to approach it. Scrape all the TR first, then scrape all the TD because it's within the table row element. Okay. So yeah, hope that makes sense. This will probably be a harder lesson because this, for anybody who hasn't coded before, this is a pretty hard thing to kind of understand. So yeah, if it's hard, don't worry. It'll probably get easier as we explain more later on. So yeah, each player's stats again lives inside the rows within the TD tags. So let's loop through all the rows, extract the TD tags, and grab the text inside. So for player and all players, player stats equals let me just add the I will add kind of what we need to do. Let me add the comments. So, and actually before we do that, let's initialize an empty array, because what we want to do is we want to have a format like this where you have a bigger array which contains each row, right? Each row or each player. But within each player is their individual statistics as a list. So you have each player, a list of each statistics for each player, but that as a bigger, as a part of the bigger array. That sounded really complicated, but trust me, when we write it, it's gonna be a lot easier. So I'm gonna just add some comments real quick. So initialize empty list to hold stats players. And then here, we are loop through each row. And then here we initialize a list to hold all the stats for one player. Oh, I can't spell. Okay. And then again, after that, let's find all the occurrences of TD for within each row. So find players equals player. Oh my god. Find all. And then again, this basically finds all the TD occurrences. And then for stat and stats, which you basically loop through each TD tag here. I'll go over kind of what this is after I write everything. You're extracting the text and add it to player. So basically, right? So we're basically initializing an empty list for each player, which is this part of it. Let me just circle it. Which is this part of it, this smaller array, right? This smaller array is what we're initializing here. And then we're finding all the TD tags right here, right? TD tags, you got 29. You got basically all the TD tags. And then you're basically looping through each, all the TD tags, right? And you're extracting the text and adding the player stats. And it's important that we extract the text because I'll show you right here. If you just were to add stat without dot text, it'll look something like this. So let's print stat real quick. Hold up. It is there, right? So if you were just to print stat without stat.text, it will look something like this, where it's like you're basically printing out every occurrence of TD, not just what's inside. But if you were to print stat.text, it cleans everything up completely because it basically gives you what's inside of the two TD tags, which are actual numbers that are very, which are important, So yeah. So we're extracting the text and adding it to player stats. And then after that, we're adding each individual small array into the bigger array of which will hold all the stats for every player, right? So let's do this. And you guys want to keep note of how I indent this. So I want to have this line where I append this individual the list for each individual player. You want to have that within the for loop still, because after you make each kind of individual list for each player, you want to append that as you go, right? So yeah. So let's break this down. So all player stats is a nested array where each element is a list of stats for a single player. So let me just write this down. Breakdown. Hopefully these comments do help, because this is a very complicated kind of thing we're going over this today. So yeah. And yeah, that's kind of what you need to know. And why is it a nested array? Because it makes the data more organized, and each inner list represents one player, while the outer list holds all the players. All right, yeah. This structure is probably it'll be really easy to loop through it and convert it into a table later, which is why we use a nested array. So finally, let's print everything. So for player and all player stats, print player. So loop through. Print the stats for one player. So when you run all this is kind of what you should get. You should get this. You know, you have each list, each inner list represents one player, right? So you have every single stat for one player and every single player basically in this website, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's basically all I have for you guys for today. I know it was probably pretty complicated, and I hope I explained it at least decently. Um, but yeah, it'll probably make more sense as you guys go on later. Thank you.